It's enough rising. It's enough rising.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Green Live Stream. I'm your host, Edie Arndell, here with my wonderful co-host, Mr. Scott Free. How's it going, Scott?
Doing good, doing good. Hey, everybody.
Hey, so our guest today is James Fauntleroy of RBN fame, and he has his own channel and lots of things going on. Welcome, James.
Thank you so very much for having me. Good to be with you.
Yeah, so I was checking out your channel today. You have a lot of good content.
Yes.
Well, the last thing I saw, well, before that, Savvy Sabs, you've been on Savvy Sabs, you were talking about healthcare, but one of the videos that especially struck my attention on your own YouTube channel, which is down in the crawl, if anybody wants to check it out,
Yep.
was talking about the downturn of housing in Florida. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, there's a lot that's going on right now, especially here in Florida. You have a lot of people who are potentially, the housing boom that we were going through is going through a steep slowdown, primarily because a lot of the people who were moving down here because of the cost of living. One of the things that a lot of people don't realize about Florida is Florida actually has no state income tax. So therefore, that is one tax that they don't have to worry about. Yeah. And so a lot of people were moving down here, plus the cost of living was cheaper. But now, because of all the transplants from places like Illinois, like Massachusetts, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York, so now it's becoming more expensive because a lot of, especially the real estate developers, are raising the prices on housing. And so because of that, now it is starting to be less appealing to them. But at the same time, for those of us who are locals here, it has actually been brutal for us because, of course, one thing that people don't realize is that, yes, we did pass a $15 an hour minimum wage, but it's set to go to $15 an hour by September of 2026. We're currently at $13 an hour now. It's not going to turn to $14 an hour until September, and then all up until next year in 2026. Then finally in September, it will be $15 an hour. And even then, according to the National Low Income Housing Coalition in their Out of Reach program, they actually say that you need to make over $35 an hour in order to afford a 2-bedroom apartment in the state of Florida. And one of the biggest populations that's growing within the cost of living, especially for housing costs, is the area that I live in, the Orlando area, the Orange County, Central Florida area. Within the I-4 corridor, you have Orange, Osceola, Seminole counties within that I-4 corridor. And so it is becoming increasingly expensive, and it's becoming competitive with places like Miami, Miami-Dade County, and places in South Florida, which is extremely expensive in comparison with the rest of the state.
Yeah.
Yep.
No,
go
ahead.
Just gonna say K8 Mac says, "Hey JB."
Oh.
I'm assuming you know what that is. And Ariel is sad that he didn't get to meet you. He was our producer for a while. I talked to him a little bit today.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
He kind of set us up. So,
right.
Yeah, $15 an hour isn't good enough anymore. Right?
And actually, Sammy had covered that piece where I guess a Republican is introduced it, and having $15 minimum wage, and I don't know what their chances are of passing it, but it puts the Democrats in a really interesting position because are they going to vote against it? And then when they vote for it, and then if the president signs it, who knows? It's like, oh, gee, Democrats, you weren't able to get that 15, but the Republicans got it in. I mean, it's just, I don't know. It's trolling. It's trolling. I don't think Republicans want it, but it's kind of a funny troll. I got to give it to them. I don't even know if it's going to pass, but Sammy covered that. So,
yeah, I mean, it is a bit of a funny troll, but it kind of reminds me back in 2020, I think it was summer of 2020, when Donald Trump floated the idea of giving everybody Medicare.
Yeah, right. For about a day. Right. And he was like, oh, yeah, sure. Why not? Yeah. Exactly.
For about a day, when Donald Trump was floating the idea of giving everybody Medicare, all the people on the left said, wait, stop, don't move, let him do it.
Yeah.
And liberals were just letting things they were busting up our rhythm, basically, because we were at the point we were like, I don't care if he gives everybody Medicare. He can call it Trump care for all we care.
Right.
Just give it to
Right.
us. And that was what we want.
Right. And, you know, you look at the Democratic side of that world, and it's just disgusting how, you know, Obama had super majority and he gives us, you know, Obamacare, which is just a nightmare. And, you know,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But you know what's funny, though? Is that when a lot of times when people talk about Obamacare and talk about how beneficial it is, it's like you are talking in praising Obamacare, but yet you talk against Project 2025, when in reality, both Obamacare and Project 2025 are from the Heritage Foundation, which is a right-wing think tank.
Right.
And so it's like, why are you praising a right-wing healthcare plan that actually, you know, harms us even further, instead of actually going where Obama was promising to give us single payer healthcare, and he never did.
Yeah, he wouldn't even do the public option.
Right. That's the big thing. That was the first thing that went off the negotiations. I mean, he didn't even negotiate for it. He said it for a day and it was gone. And but yeah, I mean, and I was getting it, so I knew the numbers. And again, it was so disgusting. Mine was pretty expensive per month, pretty expensive. And then twice that amount is what our government was giving the Blue Cross Blue Shield. I mean, obviously, we could have done that less expensive with Medicare for All. Obviously, you know,
it was a gift to the insurance company.
Right. Total gift to them. And
you do have somebody shouting you out, Roger Meadows. James, glad to see you down with the Green Lantern Corps. Give them that report. New report out soon within the next 6 weeks. What's the Green Lantern Corps?
You know, it could have been he voice texted it and that's what it decided. But I love that. I'm ready to get down.
Roger is also a big comic book fan. So you know, the superhero Green Lantern.
Oh, of course.
Green Lantern Corps. Yeah.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
Yeah, but it's kind of a play on words. But he's talking about the Outer Reach program from National Low Income Housing Coalition. That's actually a website where it actually shows in each state, including in places like Puerto Rico, which Puerto Rico is actually the most affordable out of the entire United States to live. And so I can always send you guys that report as well. But yeah, it is it's very telling the cost of living throughout the entire United States. You know, where people can and can't live. So
he says we are the Green Lantern Corps. We covered that because I saw that on Sabby, and I remembered I've seen it before. I believe she's the one that brings it up every year. So we covered that. We do a Saturday show as well. I guess it'd be 11 o'clock. No, 1 o'clock your time. Sorry.
Yeah.
The time change. We do it at noon here every Saturday. So
yeah. And
okay, cool. I put it in the private chat for you guys.
Yeah, you've showed that chart nationwide. You know what the cost is to have a 1-bedroom or something like that, and it's, you know, nobody can afford. Nobody in this country can afford to even rent. I mean, and owning is like unheard of. But no, it's a terrible situation. But again, it's all the massive privatization. When you privatize anything or everything to such a degree that the U.S. does, that's the end result. Nobody can afford it. No one can.
Yeah, but you know, of course we all know that's by design.
Sure.
You know, and you know, when it comes to housing, especially here in the state of Florida, one of the things that people don't realize, people don't know, is that when it comes to things like rent control and things like that, or rent stabilization as well, is that it's considered to be illegal here in Florida.
Oh my God.
Now you can do, you know, low income housing, but then they can always switch it from being low income housing to luxury, you know, making it to a luxury apartment. So they can always vacillate between that. And so it's nothing actually dedicated to people who are, you know, who can't fit into the low income box, but can't fit into the luxury apartment box. And so you have a lot of people who are in the middle who are struggling to be able to make ends meet, but they're not poor enough to be able to get into the low income housing. And then on top of that, with a 5-year waiting list, at the very least, a 5-year waiting list for programs like Section 8 to be able to get on, which makes it exceedingly difficult within this state.
I remember, I don't know what it is these days. I remember when it was 7-year waiting in Chicago for Section 8. Yep. It was 7 years. Yeah.
And a lot of times people get on it and move, and then How do they find them? Because their housing is unstable. You think they might move a lot? I just wanted to mention that we put the out of reach link in the comment section for both YouTube and Facebook.
Oh, cool.
Mhm.
So thanks
Yeah.
for sending that to us, James.
And then I'd throw on top of all of that climate catastrophe for Florida. And I mean, what a mess it is. And I think I say it on every show. I watch the two weather channels, and you you do watch these people struggle with just the fact, they don't want to talk about capitalism, but they talk about the issues around how are people going to afford to rebuild. Well, and now with FEMA maybe going away, I mean, it's just our government's going in the opposite direction with climate catastrophe. And of course, they're not even doing anything to solve it. But besides that, they're taking the exact wrong approach because people are going to need more help every single year.
Yeah.
And, and the thing is, again, those are two capitalist programs. So they don't run at night.
Yeah.
Because they don't have enough an audience to pay for their advertising. So, you wake up the next day and you see, 3 people dead in this town from a tornado, 5 people dead. You guys weren't there to give them the warnings.
Yeah.
And now, hurricane season is starting. So we'll see what happens. But
yeah, we've started tuning into Ryan Hall, y'all.
Yeah,
He's,
right.
He's got like 250,000 subscribers, and he'll stay on the air for as long as it takes, and he has on the ground people, which is pretty great.
Yeah.
Roger Meadows made another comment here. We need healthcare alert. Sabby just announced Ananda Lewis of MTV fame just died of breast cancer. Nationalized healthcare now. Start with CBI amendments. Stop waiting on politicians.
It reminds me of the Jimmy Dore forced to vote thing. And just, people, I don't know what it's going to take for people to understand that Democrats will never, never, never give you health care. They're never going to do it. I mean, that's, I know it's hard for people to break. It's hard for people to break away from both of those, horrific parties, but it's never going to happen with them. I mean, Biden talked public option through his campaign, public option. And then,
Then nothing.
Nothing.
So I wanted to go back to the housing. You had, before the show, you were telling us about, one of my concerns is property taxes.
Mhm.
I don't see I think we should abolish them, and, if we, like here in Illinois, one of our things that is illegal is BDS. So if we sold our Israel bonds, couldn't we just abolish, property taxes?
Right.
Because even if you buy your house, it's still not yours. You can get it taken away over tax liens. And you had a story about that, JB.
Yeah. When it comes to property tax, one of the things that is unfortunate is that a few years back, my grandmother was late on paying her property tax. Now, this is in New Jersey. And so because she was late on paying her property tax, someone was able to pay it, instead, and then they got ownership of the home. And from getting ownership of the home, they gave her, I think it was 3 weeks to move. And my grandmother was in her late 70s with my bedridden grandfather. And he was in a, hospital bed in the living room in the house. And so she had to rush to move. And mind you, she's owned this home for over 50 years. And so you imagine 50 years of memories of, things from the family heirlooms that have accumulated in the home. And so she had to move. And she had to move into an apartment that was too expensive for her to even live in. And then my grandfather had to be moved into a nursing home, which my grandmother did not want. Because when it comes to nursing homes, unfortunately, and part of it's because the people who work in nursing homes don't get paid a living wage. And so of course, a lot of people, they just, they don't have the level of care that they should have.
Right.
My grandfather ended up dying in the nursing home. And
so sorry.
My grandmother, she, passed away. Gosh, it was 2 years in April.
Okay.
And so because she died, that home that we were supposed to inherit as a family is no longer in the family. It is gone. Mind you, my mom is 73, about to be 74. She's never owned a home. I'm about to be 41, and I've never owned a home. And the opportunity for us to actually own a home is now gone.
Yeah. It's nothing but theft. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
There's another way to do that. They could just, here in Illinois, I get my property taxes in August and October.
Mhm.
So I got to come up with all that money like within just a few months. And there's numerous stories of people just falling behind, like you said, falling behind a little, or might owe $100, but some kind of weird law that our government allowed to pass. And, Illinois is a blue state right now until it's green.
Yeah.
But, they allowed that to happen. They allowed people's homes to be stolen right from underneath them. That's criminal.
But and the crazy part is, what people don't know is that in countries like China, you pay your property tax one time and that's it. You pay the property tax on your home one time and you do not pay property tax anymore.
Wow.
And so it doesn't make sense to me why we have this. Now, some people may argue, well, schools are paid by property tax. Well, I say just stop having property tax, schools funded by property tax. Why not just have schools funded universally? We agree upon how much it should be per child, per pupil. And so then we do that for all the schools. So all the white schools in the more affluent areas get the same amount as the black and brown schools in the other areas. And any school that has a deficiency when it comes to quality, when it comes to physical quality, when it comes to academic quality, well, then we do what's called equity, and we start to raise the amount so that they meet the standards of everybody else, so that there's an equalizing taking place. But you also get rid of the property tax. So that means that homeowners will also have more money in their pockets so that they can be able to spend on, things like other living expenses. I mean, let's be real. Let's call a thing. Electric's expensive, right?
Yeah.
How many people out there right now are worried that, they're going to, miss their light bill and they're going to be in the dark?
Right.
And
Or
then,
the cold.
yeah, a lot of people don't realize, some people who are, more secure will have, don't have to worry about, like, when your light bill goes off, you have to pay a reactivation fee. On top of that, if you're late on that light bill, you have to pay the full amount. You can't pay just what you're late on. And so you have to come up with even more money on top of that. Right. And then on top of that, the Trump administration, with Elon Musk's help, just made cuts to LIHEAP, which is the Low Income Housing Energy Assistance Program, which actually helps people who are low income to be able to afford to heat and cool their homes. And so on top of all that, now you're losing the assistance program that would actually help you be able to keep your lights on. So it's really just a dumpster fire that we're living in within this country, all because they want to keep the money in the hands of the corporate dictators.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Our government is controlled. That is no doubt. They have been taken over.
Yeah. I have a co-op, so my electric bill is kind of low.
Okay.
It's usually about $125 a month. And I have kind of a big house.
Wow.
So, and I keep it cool in here, man.
I think about the Tennessee Valley Authority, where, they actually have affordable electricity. Why can't we have that, in each state? And like, for instance, I know Roger's in the chat, why don't we have things like, for instance, why don't we have things like state public banks so that we can actually be able to afford the infrastructure to build, so that we can have infrastructure that is helpful to the people? Like, for instance, Scott, you were talking about when, we have hurricane season here in Florida. Well, hurricane season, if we had a state owned public bank, well, some of that money could be used for a state version of a FEMA, So then that money that's squirreled away could be able to pay for people to rebuild their houses instead of having to rely on homeowners insurance, which is leaving the state because climate change has become so bad that they don't want to pay for the repairs for people's homes that have been caused by climate change.
Right.
So it's like, okay, well, if you guys don't want to actually insure people, okay, let's get rid of homeowners insurance. Let's have a single payer homeowners insurance for every single home in the state. And then let's just have a public bank that funds that so that people won't have to worry about it. And then their premiums will be extremely low, or we'll just do it through taxes. So then, when you have something bad happen to your home, okay, you fill out this report. An appraiser comes by, takes a look at everything, and then they send you a check to be able to rebuild the home.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, the rebuilding will also come with the expenses of, okay, well, here's money for you to be able to live in an apartment until your home's rebuilt.
Right.
And there is the reality that rebuilding in Florida has new codes because they have to be up to a certain standard to handle their hurricanes. Yeah. Extremely expensive. So you can't just rebuild your home like you did before. It is way more expensive. And it was pretty disgusting. What other channel it was? They were showing the new homes and that are designed to handle it. And they're these round things that are like obviously multi-million-dollar homes. Okay, great. Yeah, just great. So you can have 20 millionaires down there in Florida and poor people washed away. I mean, that's just.
I wanted to give a shout out to Ariel's in the chat. What's up, Ariel? And also Kalia. There's some more regulars.
Yeah.
And then Roger Meadows says breaking points. Ryan Sauger talked about how China put embargo on some minerals we use to make weapons. And because we ship so many of our weapons to Israel, and I don't know what the other one is, we have no minerals to make weapons. We won.
I know. Right?
That's a win. That's a win.
That whole thing with the tariffs. This isn't 1950s. Okay, you can't deal with China the way you think you can from the past. It ain't happening. No. And again, that the propaganda over the decades about China is just it's so horrific. People have no idea. The quality of life in China in so many ways is so much better for people than it is here. It is just it's again, communism kind of works. It's a quasi-communism. And that's the other thing that drives me nuts is in our leftist world, people all argue about the specifics of communism. We just need assistance. Call it whatever you want. I don't care what you call it.
Think about it this way, right? And I know Sabby brought this out on her show. The top 5 banks in the world, out of the top 5, 4 of them are Chinese and state-owned banks.
Okay.
And so they're able to do a lot because they have these state-owned banks. So, for instance, we could have a national bank that actually just deals with infrastructure and things like that. Or we can have state banks. Like, for instance, you guys can have a state bank of Illinois. We can have a state bank of Florida, things like that. Be able to handle infrastructure projects so we won't have to raise taxes on many people, which would also raise the cost of living on many people. So, if China can do something like that, then why can't we? Right. And we have a lot more money. Apparently, we're supposed to have a lot more money than China, and yet we're not doing the same thing.
Right.
It's weird, and I liken it to us living in a mansion. Let's say we're all living in this one mansion. You have 50 people. Well, you have 5 people living on the first floor. You have 3 people living on the second floor, and then you have 2 people living on the third floor, but then everybody else, 45 people living in the basement.
Right. Mm-hmm. Exactly.
The 45 people that are living in the basement's
4,500 people, probably it's closer.
Living in the basement.
Right.
And it's cramped, and you can only move a couple of inches to the left and a couple of inches to the right, and that's it. and it stinks in there because a whole bunch of people in one spot, and it's hot.
Yeah.
And so that's basically what the United States is. And some people who don't realize, they're like, you live in the richest country in the world. It's like, yes, but we're all stuck in the basement of the richest country of the world, while everybody else, who is a very small minority, are sprawling through the rest of the house with almost nearly nobody else there. And they're able to use all the amenities within the house, whereas all of us are stuck with the furnace.
Right.
It's not fair. So the thing is, that's why we talk about the equity within the United States.
Right.
The equity is cattywampus, is out of whack, is incongruent with what the ideal of what America is supposed to be.
Right. And when they throw out those statistics about the percentages of what gets for climate catastrophe, it's like I don't remember the numbers, but it's like 70% of it is done by the top 1%. I mean, it's the same kind of story. There are millions of people out there who are not contributing to climate change whatsoever. And yet there are these like small few people who are just making it so much worse for the entire world. They don't have to have their private jets. They don't, it's horrible.
Well, that speaks to what I actually had Leonard Peltier's nephew on, Joey Peltier, last week.
Oh yeah, I caught that one. Yep.
Yeah, we were talking about you have to be aware of the greenwashing that's happening, right? A lot of these corporations will say, well, we're trying to make things more green. Yeah. And the problem is that these big corporations are actually some of the biggest polluters on the earth. And you're not really going to change climate change on an individual basis. And that's one of the biggest things that they say, well, you're going to change the climate just by using less plastic straws. And it's like, no, we're going to change the climate by you guys no longer profiting off of our environment and then making it worse.
Right.
And, just as a little bit of a preview, tomorrow on RBN, Savvy and I are actually going to be talking about Elon Musk, doing some nefarious things, to Black people within Memphis. And so I think that's going to be an interesting show to get into, because a lot of times what we go through is a lot of the more working class and poorer neighborhoods are the ones that suffer the most, especially when it comes to climate change.
Yes.
And even, health disparities happen. So I think that's, something that a lot of people really need to regard more, especially in regards to when we talk about, climate, things like that. Some people don't think that climate change is a real thing, when in reality it is. The problem is that the people who don't want you to regard it are the people who are the ones doing the most polluting. And it typically is the upper echelons of our economic system. And
one of the things that just drives me, maybe this is changing, but for a long time, the left didn't want the climate wasn't an activist thing they wanted to be involved in, because they just saw the takeover by the corporates of the greenwashing. It's like, you guys, okay, yes, that's a problem, but climate catastrophe is still here. We still got to deal with it, even though they've taken over the issue. And
well, and now, since they've gotten rid of DEI, and a lot of corporations are bending the knee in fear, all that fakery of Pride Month or whatever, like, you'd have this big banner in your office, like, y'all don't care about women. Y'all don't care about this. You don't really care. This is just to make you look good.
Right.
It's like, I don't even, corporate BS. I used to always go, I'm not signing that, because I support it for real,
No, they're showing their true selves. The fact that they're all pulling out of the Pride Parade show they didn't mean it in the first place. It was,
Yep.
Yeah.
And
the care that they have really is just so that they can make themselves seem more progressive, so that you'll spend more money at their companies.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
Virtue signaling, right?
Yeah. So really, good riddance. We don't want you at our Pride Parades.
Yeah. So I'm gonna have to check out that Leonard Peltier's nephew you said was on.
Yeah, Joey Peltier. He's a Native American activist, climate activist as well. He's actually been on my channel a few times. Right when Leonard Peltier was released, he also came on to talk about that as well.
Okay.
So yeah, he's a great activist to have on, especially to talk about things like hemp, and what that can do for our environment. Hemp is extremely resourceful, and you can do so much. Roger's in the chat; he can tell you a lot of what can be done with hemp. But it actually would help our environment.
DEI,
Yeah, Black people didn't really benefit from DEI.
No.
Affirmative action.
Right.
Yeah, because the thing is, DEI was really just it's just like where corporations put their logos in rainbow colors for Pride Month. It's the same thing. They don't really care. They make it seem like that because they want the Black dollars, but they don't want to actually do anything to benefit Black people from a material, concrete way. And so they'll put a couple of Black faces, maybe in their executive board, and that's it.
Sounds like somewhere else I know. Like the Democratic Party.
And some of the biggest, beneficiaries of DEI were mostly white women. Yeah. It wasn't Black people, Black Americans to be able to get the
white
benefits.
Wealthy women.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Usually.
And so it was the same thing with affirmative action. Yeah. And so when it comes to actually giving, what's due for us, they don't really care, because ultimately it's just about, we want your dollars, but we don't want you to truly benefit in any material way.
Yeah. So that brings me to the next thing I wanted to talk about. You had Marcel Dixon on, and he was running against James Clyburn. And he was you guys were talking about reparations, which Green Party is for cash payments.
Yes.
And you made this comparison that I found interesting. I never really heard it put quite this way. It's a debt that's owed. And also, you got to consider your inheritance as something that was given to you. So, it's kind of the same thing, just a different balance sheet, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So I'm gonna explain it in very plain layman's terms so that anyone, hey Chris, that anyone can understand. So chattel slavery was basically a system where the people were used to make profits for the slaveholders, but none of the profits, none of the benefits ever went to them. So it was basically stolen surplus value from the people who actually worked the land. So in doing so, that surplus value is actually owed to the workers who worked that land. Not just for the work, but also through the suffering that they've endured for either refusing to or not working the land good enough, through the beatings, through the torture, unfortunately, the sexual assault, all these different things, right? And doing so, the damages that were done during chattel slavery are owed to those slaves. But because the United States never, which they assisted with and sometimes turn a blind eye to, because that debt was never paid to those slaves died off. Well, who does that debt go to? It goes to the next of kin, which is the same thing that's done within our court system. And so that next of kin is those of us who are Black Americans, or the Americans descendants of slavery, or freedmen, as we're sometimes called. And so because it is owed to us, a lot of times people get in their feelings and they go, well, we don't owe, you guys have never been slaves. It's like, no, but we are the descendants of them because you never paid them. So therefore, the next of kin is owed. And so we would have be asking for it if it was actually given to us in 1865 by General T. Sherman in Special Field Order number 15. But because of President Andrew Johnson and his racist ass, he decided to renege on that promise, renege on that actual debt that's owed. And so now you guys are trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars in debt to the Black Americans, which you have never paid. And then on top of it, it's really nasty when you think about it. Other people who have been owed reparations, other groups have been owed reparations. The problem is, they've gotten their reparations in front of us. Like, for instance, the Japanese who have been interned, People who have been subject to Agent Orange, all these different people who have been subject to atrocities because of the United States, they got in their reparations. And as soon as we go, where's ours? It's like, we don't owe you anything.
They're
Right,
like,
right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
And I want to bring up. Okay, go ahead.
And anyone that considers himself to be anti-capitalist and pro-worker, if reparations is not something that you agree with, then you may want to rethink your calling yourself an anti-capitalist. Because because reparations is really just paying the debt of that's owed to people whose surplus labor was stolen.
Yeah. I want to say that this came up as an issue with the Green Party and Workers' Strike Back just recently, because they had a left unity conference, and then the next day it was the Workers' Strike Back conference, their annual meeting, and Green Party pushed to try to get them to add reparations to their platform, and they didn't want it. And at first it was really difficult to understand, and now I think I get a better sense. Like Shama Sawant, one of her big things was that she has won. She has won a lot of things that she's done. And she and they decided, well, that's not a winning issue. And I think that's where Workers' Strike Back is very different from the Green Party, because the Green Party, and I mean, it kind of just was thinking about it today, and I realized the difference. The Green Party does what is right. Does that mean that we may not win an election? Damn right it does. Because the people have to come to our thinking, and then maybe they'll vote for us. But that's the thing about the Green Party, is we want to do what's right. And therefore, that's what our platform is based on, not what might win elections, right? And so it's just interesting that reparations was one of the big issues that came up, because it is so much like it. So what if you as a particular person won't benefit from it? Is the right thing to do. As Americans, it's the right thing to do.
Yeah. They are focused on like universally popular things.
They are. And, like I said, Shama's won a lot of things, so I got to give her credit for that. But there's a difference. There is a difference.
That is very
I did want to mention Kalia's comment here. And Justin Beth's in the chat. What's up, Justin?
Oh, wow. Justin is the one.
Just when
oh, my God. Justin was the one who was introducing to the Workers' Strike Back the reparations. And Justin did a really, really good job of presenting it. I have to say, I saw the other video. I wasn't there. He did a fantastic job. So, Justin, great to see you here.
Clyburn basically told his constituents to stop talking about reparations and just eat their watermelon and fried chicken.
Yeah, right. No, I mean,
Yeah, Jim Clyburn's a turncoat for sure. But when it comes to, and this is unfortunate, thinking that reparations is not a winning argument or something that will help you win. In fact, they're running away from something that, number one, is a winning strategy. Because who does the Democratic Party depend on the most to win?
Right. Exactly.
It's like, why, it's like the road to success is laid there right for you. Why are you taking a detour?
Yeah. Right.
And the problem is that when it comes to wealth disparities, we as Black Americans have inherited the debt, from, because you can have inherited wealth. You can also have inherited debt. We've inherited that debt over generations upon generations. And so therefore, if you actually ask Black Americans, if somebody was to give you reparations, would you take it? 9 times out of 10, they're going to say, hell yeah. Because the thing is,
like, where do I sign the check?
Yeah. Ultimately, a lot of us have suffered. Like, for instance, here's something some people may not know. A lot of people who say, well, let's make America great again, right? They want to go back to a time where, the women stayed home and they took care of the family and the man just went out to work. That didn't exist in the Black community.
Yeah, right.
Black women worked, right? Yep. So we don't have the good old days like other groups have. right? And so, all this inherited debt that we have from years of being neglected, on top of it, and a lot of times, some people who consider themselves to be progressive, they will praise Franklin Delano Roosevelt, even though he also threw black people under the bus.
Mm-hmm.
And the governors who were instituting, a lot of the policies from, the New Deal threw black people under the bus.
I want you to elaborate on that to make sure our audience understands what you're talking about there. How
Yeah,
do you throw them under the bus?
Yeah, so things like the Fair Housing Act, a lot of times when black people were trying to apply to get housing, they were denied housing. Of course, the GI Bill, when it came for black GIs to come back and be able to go to school, they were denied being able to go to school, to be able to get upward mobility after fighting in the Second World War. And so a lot of these things that have happened is like, okay, we tried, right? Or let's go back to what happened in the Greenwood district of Tulsa, Oklahoma, what we know as Black Wall Street.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the reparations were actually never given to the people who had their town destroyed. We were doing capitalism and they were succeeding at it. But then, of course, unfortunately, some people had a problem with it. And so they completely firebombed the entire area.
Right.
Yep.
Or what about the neighborhoods that happened in 1985 under the move bombing that happened, where the police actually bombed the neighborhood? Yep. By the way, I was about to turn 1 year old, and that was across the bridge, the Ben Franklin Bridge in Camden, New Jersey, when that happened.
Wow. Yeah.
And what if we were living in that area? Because my family is actually from West Philly.
Yeah.
So it's like all these things that have happened, and how many cities and towns that were majority black that were actually buried underwater, they made into a lake. Or what happened to Seneca Village, where it was a majority black area within the middle of New York, and then they got rid of it and created Central Park. Like, all these different things that have happened, but a lot of people don't realize the Ocoee massacre that happened here in Orlando, Florida, near Orlando, which, because some black people dared to try to vote, well, they had a massacre.
Right. The murders of the people in the Black Panther Party. I mean, that was just straight up murder. That's in Chicago. That was in Chicago too.
But my thing is, like, with Workers Strike Back, unfortunately, if you're standing for workers, then why aren't you standing for the Black American workers that have died, that have never gotten their compensation?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think they need to rethink that policy.
Yeah.
No.
We tried. I was there. We tried. And Justin tried. He did.
I was supposed to be there, but I got sick. But
I know.
Okay.
I know. I was so looking forward to meeting you. We would have been in the same house.
Oh, that's right. I forgot. You guys are trying to do the housing arrangements. Yes.
Thanks to Justin.
Yeah.
So here's a comment from him. All the things I wanted Workers Strike Back to add to the platform was to help them, and they turned their nose to ask of it.
It was rough, Justin. Like I said, I watched some video, and it was right. I also think the attitude they took was really, really inappropriate. I was surprised. There was the real hostility as the reaction. It was,
I found it very hurtful because I came there to learn how to win. I'm like, you guys did some good stuff. Let's join forces. Like, we're here to support you. Kind of, me being my optimistic self, right? And then it turned into like, what just happened? And I was like literally heartbroken for a while. I had to recover.
Yeah. A lot of people
I have
went through
this,
some trauma.
left unity. I have this dream of left unity, and they just seem to crap all over it right in front of me. I'm like, oh no.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I mean, and that's something that, I mean, if they really want to actually succeed in being on the right side of history, that's one thing that they will have to do. And I know Shama Sawan is running for Congress now. My thing is, if you're going to be running for Congress, you would really need to get the backing of the Black community, not just the Black community within Seattle, not just the Black community within Washington.
Yeah.
but you would need to get support of Black people all over the United States in order to be able to help you, because the coffers, the war chest of the Democratic Party is extremely large.
Yeah.
And so,
I was gonna say, and whole Washington, because
yeah,
they're pushing, healthcare inside of Seattle. Whole Washington's been working on that forever.
yeah,
And the Green Party was there ready to support them.
Yeah.
14 different states came.
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, Green Party had a massive presence at that event.
Yeah, we were excited. We were there trying to take over.
Yeah.
But anyway.
And and the thing, it is really, really hard being in the Green Party and we do try to do left unity. We really do. I swear to God, we do. But it's so difficult because, again, I go back to what I was saying. We just have a different idea. I mean, I almost feel like we're not a political party, because our goal is not to win. That's not, we don't do these strategies that it's going to, we want to present the right things to the people. And hopefully at some point the people will realize that in the voting booth, it's a little tiny place. No one sees what you're doing. You can actually do the right thing. You can. It's doable. And that's, was it Butch Ware who talked about that was kind of the flaw in this completely controlled state that we live in? There is one mechanism. Yeah, it was on.
He was on Greg Stoker.
Greg Stoker's show.
What is it? Colonial
Outcasts.
Colonial Outcasts. Really good interview. I watched it twice. It was so good.
And he said that's the one mechanism that is that we can break into that system. It's, maybe it's not super sexy, but the electoral system is the way that we can actually get in there. And he's all for the LA uprising. Absolutely. He's for it.
Yeah.
He said
he's for a general strike.
Yeah, he's totally for general strike.
So that's
one of my biggest questions is, was ending chattel slavery a popular position?
Right.
No.
Right.
Think about this.
But it was the right thing to do.
Martin Luther King Jr. died with a 75% disapproval rating.
Yep.
He was not popular. The civil rights movement was not popular because a lot of the civil disobedience that they had would actually inconvenience people.
Yeah.
But it's still the right thing to do. And so therefore, it may seem like, it's not going to be the right thing to do. But if they actually kept their ears to the ground, they would realize that there's a huge sleeping giant of Black people that are waiting in the wings for someone to champion reparations on a national level. And the problem is that, number one, a lot of times they don't really know about it. And let's say somebody like Shama Sawant, who's running, were to champion something like, reparations, or Workers Strike Back were to champion something like reparations, that would actually get a lot more Black people on board. And a lot more Black Americans would actually, when we support. Yeah. Look how hard it is for us to leave the Democratic Party. You know what I'm saying? So,
and people are starting to leave.
Know that you're actually truly fighting for. Like, I don't care if you lose. If you're limping away with bumps and bruises and cuts after fighting for me, you're still my hero.
Right.
But the problem is that, unfortunately, some people, they are like, well, that's not going to win. And that's why I always talk about, like, your heroes are not going to be the politicians. Your heroes are going to be the people you see in the mirror.
Yeah. Yeah. There you go.
Yeah, Chris Ero's got a good comment here. The pathway to collective liberation goes through Black America. What's good for our community will prove to be good for everyone. Winning will come. Gain trust and cooperation first. Yeah. So here in Carbondale, I am working with Carbondale United, which is City Councilwoman Nancy. She's wonderful, and she called me up. I'm going to be in a documentary about the struggle. The struggle continues. I always get that wrong.
Nice.
I've never been in anything like that before. I'm kind of like a little freaked out, but also very happy about it. So I've been reaching out to all the communities because I just wish we could just put it together like a big sandwich,
And one of the things I will give to anybody that's running in the Green Party. And I see Roger's comment. Here's the thing. meet black people where they are. Go to the hoods, the hollers, go to the rural communities where you know black people are.
Yeah.
Go. Now, you may hear some things you may disagree with, right? So, we're not a monolith. A lot of black people are conservative, despite what some people may think. Trust me, I know. But at the same time, if you listen to their issues and then you tailor your policies according to the issues while still maintaining your principles, right? That's a winning strategy. But the problem is that people don't come to us. And by people not coming to us, what I mean is don't go to the middle class neighborhoods in the suburbs to talk to black people. No. You go to them inner cities.
Right.
You go to those places where people may go, oh my God, that place is a little dangerous. Like, exercise caution, right? But you have to do that everywhere.
Bring a buddy.
Go there.
I'm in Chicago, so yes, we got the south side and west side here. So absolutely.
Yeah, there's a huge contingent of black people, black Americans especially, that aren't even registered to vote.
Yeah.
And you can just go there and you can encourage them and say, well, this is what we could do.
Yeah.
But the problem is that they don't come to us because they think that we're not worth it.
Yeah.
Well, that's
so
not the
true.
case in my town.
No. Absolutely. And yes.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it is so important that we reach all communities. And like you said, not just like a tokenist type of approach. Absolutely. No.
Yeah.
I have a theory. I don't know if it's true. And I just thought of it the other week. We were talking about Lincoln, with the Emancipation Proclamation. And, there's a lot of bad stuff about Lincoln. But what he did, like you were saying, he didn't just do like reform, like, well, slaves should have a little better like living standard, right? He said, no, Emancipation Proclamation, free the slaves. And I wonder if he was, I'm not going to say the Green Party of the time in terms of principles necessarily, but they were an independent party. They had one senator before he became president. They were a brand new party. They were the third party of their time. The Whigs were the big party, right? So I wonder if that also was part of it. Was that the reason he could take that jump instead of doing the safe thing that the Democrats always do? They take the safest approach, which gets us nowhere.
Well, okay. So Abraham Lincoln was actually pushed to that position. He actually didn't want to free the slaves.
Okay.
He actually famously said if he could keep the Union together without having to free the slaves, he would do it. So he was no friend of black Americans either.
Okay.
In fact, Margaret Kimberly actually wrote this book called Presidential Black American Presidents.
Okay.
I read it on my channel and discuss it, but she actually goes into Abraham Lincoln and how he wasn't a friend of black people either. But the thing is that he was pushed into that position. And so that's what led to the Emancipation Proclamation. Because originally what he wanted to do with us black Americans is what basically Europe did to Jewish people, wanting them to go to Israel, go to Palestine and basically colonize that area.
Okay.
Abraham Lincoln wanted us to leave the United States and he wanted to drop us off in Panama instead.
Okay.
And basically that would have been like a settler colonial project.
Okay.
That just makes me so sad.
Yeah.
Okay. No,
it's
okay. JB, don't make me cry on the show. Okay.
Sorry. But
it'll be the first time.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, like, even though he did what was right, it had to be pushed. And the problem is like, here the big conundrum is, the phrase "the arc of the universe is long and it bends towards justice."
Yeah.
But who does the bending?
There you go.
We do.
It's us.
Right.
It has to be us.
Right.
And sometimes that bending has to happen from people who may not benefit from that particular thing. Like, for instance, you know how, and all respect, no disrespect to the present company, but they talk about how Karens, particularly white women, will, get up in arms about different things, right? Have you? But there's a positive side to that could be used, that power of being Karens for the right cause, right? And so
I
it's
love
like,
that phrase.
yeah, are you being a Karen on behalf of the most marginalized people among you?
Okay.
If you are, look, Karen's going to turn into a name of affection. You know, I would love to see that. But
Yes.
the thing is that like, for instance, those of us who are men, we have to, number one, check each other men by, holding each other accountable when it comes to how we treat women, including systemically, right? And if we do that, then you're actually helping the people who are more marginalized than yourself. Same thing with many other different marginalized groups. So we have to use our privilege in order to help bring people up to our level. But the problem is some people don't want to do that. So we have to change the culture so that you kind of feel forced to kind of, be that way. You feel forced by peer pressure to be good or to be on the right side of history.
There you go. There you go. I like
And so it's like that's something I think that needs to happen. But we do it one by one by, not only practicing what we preach, but we encourage it in like shows like this by pushing the envelope, when it comes to liberation for all. Because like what they say, nobody's free until we're all free, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Injustice to one is injustice to all. I like that. Karen with the cause.
There you go.
Karen for the cause.
Yeah.
I've been accused of being a Karen before.
Okay.
Yeah, but I mean, if you're being a Karen for people who are being disadvantaged or taken advantage of,
No.
look,
Yeah. Mine was just for running a meeting.
Yeah.
I wouldn't let chaos ensue.
Not a huge cause there. Okay.
Sorry.
Look,
But,
don't ever apologize for trying to do what you can for those who are in a less privileged position.
Right.
Don't ever apologize for it, because
I don't have a lot of privilege. This is all I got. And I was born with this. It's just like, some people kind of weaponize it towards you. It's like, I didn't choose mine either. I'm doing the best I can. I'm a working class girl. Like I had to fight for everything as well. And I'm here, trying to fight for others. So, I'm doing the best I can,
Absolutely. I have some privileges too, and I have to use whatever I have in order to help people. But that's what, makes it worthwhile, right? Because then you're doing, I just want to see the world win,
That part.
There you go.
Yeah.
Now, you know what? I want to make a little speech because I don't know if how much the audience knows about RBN. So I'm going to make my RBN speech. But so I was really into Jimmy Dore for a long time. He was like my hero and stuff. And so I would see a couple of times Nick Cruz was a guest. And I was like, oh God, this guy's really cool. I got to check him out. So I went and checked out RBN, Revolutionary Blackout Networks, for folks who don't know. And the thing that I love about RBN, and it is JB and Nick and Sabby and Rome are the four main faces of RBN. Obviously, there's people behind the scenes. What I found so amazing about RBN is it's the first time I felt like in this leftist YouTube space, I felt like there was an actual community. And I have not felt that in any other YouTube channel that I have watched, and I watched tons of them. And it is really, really heartening to feel like there is a place where the folks really are working to build community. And I know that that's happening with RBN. And I want to push everybody to go check out JB's show and check out Nick and RBN and Sabby, of course, and Rome. And because I just feel like you guys really have the right goals in mind. I mean, you understand that there are these issues that are out there that have to be dealt with, but most of all, you guys want to build community. And I think that's such a fantastic thing. And that's why I watch you guys like crazy, because I'm just so impressed what you guys have done in such a short period of time. It's really an amazing space.
Wow. Thank you so much. Very kind words from you. I appreciate it. You know, we try to not just talk the talk, but walk the walk.
Mhm.
We're activists that just so happens to be podcasters, right?
Okay.
Because one of the biggest things that we try to push is mutual aid, building dual power. Because we realize that the duopoly, they're not going to assist us in any way,
Mhm.
right? And what we're trying to do is help people to realize their power. So we give you the news and say, this is what's going on in your world. Here's what they're not telling you. And then we go, this is what you can do in order to help your community so that we can alleviate a lot of these issues that are happening within the country. And so then you realize that power, then you start doing more acting, and then it starts to grow, right?
Mhm.
And once that, and the crazy thing is, it's like a seed that's planted. When a seed is planted, the first thing that grows is the roots, but you don't see it. So you'll look at something and you won't see anything happening just yet, but in the background, you have root systems that are growing and latching on, right? And then you start to see that little bit of a sprout come through the ground, that leaf that comes up. But then next thing you know, over time, it starts continuing, it starts to grow. And then maybe even starts budding some flowers or budding some fruit. And then as it grows, it continues on and becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. But the thing is like you gotta plant the seed first. And you may not see the root system at first because it's still in the ground, but something is happening. And you have to have faith that something is happening. And this is one of the things we're trying to do, is we're trying to plant as many seeds as possible. So then by the time we look 5-10 years down the line, oh, we have this mutual aid group. We have that mutual aid group. Oh, we're building this dual power. We're teaching people how to do this for the community. And so then it changes the culture. It changes the ether, so to speak, so that by the time we look around, a revolution is happening.
Mhm.
But the revolution always has to start with education.
Okay.
And that education is very important. And that is letting people know what the world is, how it's working, and why it's not beneficial for us, and then how you can make it work.
That's something that my friend says that she likes about watching Sabby.
Mhm.
And you know, Brianna Joy Gray as well. They have solutions in their back
Yeah.
pocket.
Yeah.
Right.
And
You know,
look, Savvy's a
here.
great especially entry point for people that may not be into political discussion. Great entry point, especially for people who want to just get the news, but they need a perspective that's outside of the corporate, narrative.
Mhm.
So wonderful. And then when you want to learn more about geopolitics, you have Nick. More about like organizing on the ground, you have Rome.
Yeah.
And then if people just want to listen to a guy with a big mouth, they have me. So.
No, JB, what I really, really, really love about your shows, you just did the one on Job Corps. And what I love is that you do really go in depth, because a lot of times you need to have that to get the whole, I mean, I knew about Job Corps. I kind of heard of it, and so, but no, you really, when you do your in-depth stuff, it really helps. Yeah, it takes a little more time, but it's worth it. It's absolutely worth it. Your show is very valuable to the whole RBNs. And you're right. It's kind of for people that give really different takes. Like Nick will just go at you.
Yeah.
Nick will
Yeah.
and Rome too.
And Rome comes from a different space. Yeah. It's a good balance.
Yes,
It is. Well, we are past time. And I just want to thank you so much for being here, JB. It means the world to me. You're welcome back anytime, dude.
Yes, JB, thank you so much.
Yeah. So,
thank you so much.
And thanks to everybody. We had 50 people. We had lots of active chats going on. It was hard to keep up with, to be honest, which is a good problem to have.
Right.
So, and we'll see you all on Saturday for News of the Week.
For news. Thanks, everyone.
All right.
You,
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
An uprising, we're rising up. It's an uprising, we're rising up. It's an uprising. Fight the power. It's an uprising. Fight the power.